Even though I recently redid my Electrolux Olympia 1 canister, the motor that's in the canister, I've not done anything to this PN4 power nozzle other than a number of years ago put a new brush roll in it and grease those bearings. So let's take this PN4 apart and see if I can recondition the motor that's in there. And as far as I'm aware of, this is still the original motor from 1980 and it's never been touched. Okay, here's the first test run of the motor. Belt is obviously not hooked up. So I was looking at the sparking that you would get here and here, and it's extremely minimal. Obviously, this motor being as old as it is, it's never going to be completely perfect, but you heard the motor RPM gradually begin to rise a little bit as everything reseated to itself, since I can't put a seating stone in there. I mean, there's no place for me to put that in there. So just turn it on and off a bunch of times after I sanded it. It reseats, and of course it's getting used to the new lubrication in there. But yeah, that's running very, very well. Nice and smooth, to be sure, and no major sparking. Okay, one of the most annoying things about getting this machine back together is getting this belt on. And I don't really do this very often, but this is one of those toothed belts. And as far as I'm aware of, this belt is original to this machine. Maybe it was replaced before 1987 when I acquired this, but I know it's been on there for at least 32 years, and it's not showing any signs of shredding. So this belt is somewhere between 32 to 40 years old. Now, when you put this thing on here, it is a pain, and it usually is a little easier. I'm sure there's several different ways to do this, but it's usually a little bit easier when you actually loosen up the motor mount, because this stretches so tight on here that if you have the motor mount tight and you have the brush roll in, it's just going to be about impossible to put this in very easily anyway. So you can go and put this in here, and you can see I have no way to stretch that tight enough. Now, I can go and just completely lift the motor up and do that, and that's fine. And that's probably what I will do here, because it's the easiest to show. So you can just simply take the screws out and just lift this up a little bit, get this in here. Right, there you go. And then tighten it back up again. But it is kind of a pain to put the belt on unless you take the screws out, or you fight with the belt just in general. But I suppose that's a good thing, because you're not really replacing the belt very often. I mean, obviously, if this one is at least 32 to 40 years old, you know you don't have to. And there is a little bit of wiggle room in here to adjust everything to make this reasonably tight. So you certainly don't want it loose. So then what you can do after you get everything back in here is tighten this up as much as possible without overdoing it. So I will put a little bit of tension on that, make sure that is sitting properly, and then I'll go ahead and tighten these down. And if I need to make an adjustment later on, I can, once I see the belt move and the motor run properly. But I can tell you that this is indeed kind of a pain to do. But there we are. Fantastic. Now you put the top back on, and as you saw in earlier videos, that does say Weisheimer's, and they've just recently gone out of business here in Columbus, Ohio. So you got these right here. All right. So here we go. And that is it. Reset button. Now we just have to go and try it out. Let's see what kind of power the whole system uses. Obviously not running on the carpet. That's around 900 watts or so with just the hose. That's it. Now let's turn on the motor. So you saw a little over 1,000 watts or so. I think the fuse in here said pops at 1.79 amps. And of course, I realize it's upside down. It says it's supposed to run 1.4 amps. And I would imagine that would be on the carpet, not just necessarily in free air. So let's put this thing back together and give it a quick test run. Let's see if we can give this old girl a run for her money. Got some rice and oats down there, just a simple surface cleaning test. And if you notice, I have a pretty ratty old hose right here. And it had absolutely squat for airflow and suction until a few years ago when I went and I got this thing right here. And I took a whole can of that, poured it down that hose, and swung it around wildly like a kid would do. And that sealed it up much better. It's not perfect. I did it a number of years ago, so it's probably degraded a little bit. But I think there's still a difference between that woven hose, even though it's a replacement hose, and the gray vinyl hose that you can see right there. So I just measured the two, and I think it's about a 17 or 18 CFM difference or so. So let's start out with the old hose that's holding in for dear life. And then if we need to, if the pickup's not real good, I'll switch over to the newer vinyl hose, which is what I really recommend anyway, because it does so much better than the old woven hoses, regardless of what condition they're in. It left some. Yeah, it's trying, but you can still hear a whole bunch of stuff rattling up in here. So let's give it a little more airflow, shall we? And also, I've been using this machine more and more for just general pickup, so the bag is actually fairly full. All right, now let's see what we can do. Anything stuck in there? Yeah, there's some. Picking up quite a bit. It's stuck in there. Okay, it's clearing out now. It is. Oh, that's funny. That's funny. It's not perfect. There's still a little bit rattling around it. There we go. It's gone now. Nice. Okay, here we go. That's pretty good. Alright, I guess I finally got it all. I hope. Oh, almost. No. I can see him bouncing around in there. Now let me just turn this off. Yep. So the brush roll in here keeps some of that stuff just bouncing around in there no matter how much airflow you have. Yep, picked up just a little bit more. That's nice. There's a little bit of carpet left, not much, but it'll do it. At least with the new hose anyway. Trying to make this look nice for the camera. Of course, here's the ratty old one. It's got kind of a crunch in it right there that I've showed you in previous videos from way back when, but that's it. So now this machine is ready to go for decades and decades. This was done a while back. This was done in this particular video, and I must say, now since I've got the new grease in here, this is running not only cooler than what I'm used to, but it's also running a lot quieter because it didn't have any lubrication in there for a long time. So thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more.